Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about red willow tobacco making. Um, and so this is, some people might call this kinnikinnick. I'm a Dakota Lakota. I call this chanshaja. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. But that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm just going to quickly give myself a quick smudge, just because I'm going to be making this tobacco that I'm going to actually use it. So I want to make sure that I'm not bringing any kind of, outside negativity into this. So I'm going to give myself a quick smudge. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to do this now, I actually wanted to do this back in September, October, November, but we got really busy and I didn't get a chance to. So the reason we're doing this in the winter time is because the red willow that we're going to use to make our tobacco, you harvest this when it starts to get cold, when it gets to winter time. And it's just because once it's been, sort of below freezing, it just tastes better. when you make your tobacco, it tastes better than if you harvest it in the summertime when it's hot and then you dry it out. It just, I don't know, it's got a bit of a weird aftertaste if you smoke it in your pipe. So this is why we harvest this in the wintertime, just for the taste. So what I wanted to talk about first actually was so when I use this kind of tobacco all the time, when I'm going to load my pipe, this is what I put in my pipe. A lot of people will bring commercial tobacco, like a pouch of tobacco or some packs of cigarettes, and they'll ask for prayers, or they'll ask for, can we do a ceremony for them, or things like that. We'll accept that tobacco for sure, but we won't put that tobacco in our pipe. Just because some of the chemicals found in commercial tobacco are, and I have a list, and this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just some of the more major things that are in the tobacco. So acetone, which is found in nail polish remover, acetic acid, which is an ingredient in hair dye, ammonia, which is bleach, arsenic, used in rat poison, benzene, which is found in rubber cement and gasoline, butane, which is lighter fluid, cadmium, which is an active component in battery acid. Oh, somebody shared their screen. Let's see. There we go. Sorry about that. Not sure who that was. Somebody accidentally shared their screen. So battery acid, carbon monoxide, which is what comes out of your exhaust, out of your car, formaldehyde, which is used for embalming bodies, hexamine, which is lighter fluid, the lead that they use in batteries, naphthalene, which is an ingredient in mothballs. I don't even know why you would need to have that in there, but whatever, it's in there. Methanol, which is rocket fuel, nicotine, which is actually an insecticide, tar, obviously tar for paving roads, and something called toluene, which is used to make paint. So that's, just because of these factors, I don't put the commercial tobacco in my pipe. And so I make this chanshaja or kinnikinnick for that reason. Now, I just wanted to actually show you a picture of kinnikinnick, because it's sort of, I'm not exactly sure the origin of the word kinnikinnick. I believe it's an Algonquin word, but I can't, don't quote me on that. But what that talks about, let me just share my screen here. So this is kinnikinnick. This is, it's actually called bearberry. So it's the leaves, these little tiny leaves that you pick, and dry them out, and then, you know, grind them up or cut them up. And that's what kinnikinnick is. And so when it's dried up, it looks like that. But apparently the word kinnikinnick is used to describe many different kinds of tobacco. So I couldn't say for sure exactly what it's talking about, but it talks about tobacco anyway. So the bearberry is interesting. It's used for, it's like an antibacterial, and it can be used for urinary tract infections, and it prevents the growth of bacteria in the urinary tract. And so it's really good, you know, for that. But you know, I always caution, sorry, I just got a question. Bearberry the same as barberry? I'm not even sure. Not sure what barberry is. But I caution using, like, I always say I don't like to give generic prescriptions because, you know, I could say, you know what, if you get a urinary tract infection, go pick some bearberry, make some tea.
On there. No.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna keep you muted there. I could say, you know, if you get a urinary tract infection, go get some bearberries, make some tea, drink that, you'll be fine. But I caution against that because, like anything, you could be taking some kind of medication that this is going to have a reaction to, or you might be allergic to it, or you might have some kind of an underlying health condition that you don't even know about, that bearberry might, you know, make worse or irritate. So when, you know, when people come for, you know, I have this kind of an ailment, what can I take for that? I don't give those prescriptions. We go into ceremony and we ask, because those spirit helpers are going to be the ones to be able to tell us. They can see inside of your body, and they can tell, you know, what's going on in there, and something that I can't do. And so we always ask in ceremony what this person needs, and then we go from there. But if you wanted to use it just for the kinnikinnick part, that's fine. You can just go and pick the leaves, dry the leaves. You can also dry the berries and put the berries in with your tobacco too, if you wanted to. I just would say first, just to make sure you're not allergic or you know, be sensitive to the berries, to just, you know, as you're picking them, just place one on your lip, and that's it. Just put it there and then take it away. And if your lip starts to swell or get itchy, then you don't want to touch the berries. The leaves are okay to use for tobacco, but leave the berries. So that's what, you know, my understanding of kinnikinnick are those little small leaves. Now, so we're going to talk though today about the red willow. And so Chanshaja means, it's talking about, in the Dakota Lakota language, it's talking about the dogwood, dogwood trees. And that's what red willow is. It's a dogwood. And so what we do, I had a question here about when do we harvest? So the kinnikinnick leaves, you can harvest those anytime. Once they're out and blooming, probably around middle of July, starting middle of July to, you don't want to wait too long because then they get sort of overripe, or and they get kind of old after and they start to taste funny. So you have sort of a window there. I would say middle of July to middle of September, and then anything after that, it's going to start to taste funny if you're using it for tobacco. That's for the little leaves, the bearberry. And so the red willow, we harvest this in the colder months in the winter time, and that's because of taste as well. So I just want to run a little quick video that we made, and I'll talk. There's no sound. I'm just going to talk while it's going. Okay, so here's us. We're heading out of town. We're going to go get our red willow. My husband driving and my oldest son in the passenger side. And so you're not really going to find, like, if you have a neighbor that's got some red willow in their yard, I probably wouldn't use that to make your tobacco from. I would go out of town for sure. So this is us, and where you find red willow mostly is by the water. So if there's water around, there's going to be red willow around. And we just want the little small bushes, not the big tall red willows, but these little shorter ones. And so that's me all bundled up. And I'm just like we do with anything else, we put our tobacco down first. So I'm trying not to fall in the snowbank there, and I'm putting down my tobacco and thanking that red willow for being and for lending itself to us so that we can make our tobacco for prayers. Okay, so this is I'm just showing the size of the ones that you want to use. So that one right there, that's about the size. You don't want the great big thick ones, and you don't want the little wee skinny ones. And then, so here's my husband having a hard time trying to hack away at that. His little axe was pretty dull. He said, I should have sharpened it first. This is my oldest son now posing with the red willow we've taken. And so that was what he had there was just enough basically for me to show you today and make a little bit. That's just a little bit. And so now we're at home and we have it, the sticks laid out, and we've taken off. There's my husband, don't mind his legs. We've taken off all the little branches, and we'll save those because the little branches, what we do is we'll either grind them up or cut them up into small pieces. And if we have like a headache or nauseous or something like that, we'll make a tea out of that. So we save those. And so what I'm doing here is I have a very, very sharp knife, which I cut myself many times with that knife, and I'm just shaving off the red. So just the very outer bark. So when you're shaving it, it's you just go very lightly, because what you want to do, and what I'm doing here is I'm showing the green bark underneath. And so that green bark is what you want to make your tobacco out of. The red, it doesn't taste very good. So it's kind of bitter. So you want to get rid of that red, and then the green underneath. So there's all the red. And my knife was so sharp, I think I went a little deep because I got some green in there too. But this under stuff, and you can't really see the color too well here, but it's pretty green. That's what you want to use to make your tobacco. So I wouldn't suggest, it's a couple of the shots here of how I'm holding my knife. I wouldn't suggest doing it like that. So I'm just showing here, this is what we want. This is how thin it is, and that's what we're going to be using. But I have rheumatoid arthritis, and it's really hard for me to hold on to the knife sometimes. So I just do it however it's easiest for me at the time. So I wouldn't suggest doing it like that though. And so this is now, I have all the shavings laid out on a blanket, and they're going to just dry. They're going to dry like that. So probably about a week to get it nice and dry. I guess depending on where you're drying it. That was just in my basement. And we have a dehumidifier there. So it dried out pretty quick. But so that's how you make that. So, but what I wanted to talk about was the red willow bark, because there's we don't just get rid of, you know, when we take the sticks off and all that, we don't just throw those out, we keep those. So this is what, you know, we take these little tiny sticks off, we put them off to the side, and we'll keep those. And like I said, we'll make I have it written down here, so I might as well just read it. Remedy for coughs, cold, and fever. The red willow bark is often made into a tea as a remedy for colds. It's also used as an emetic for coughs and fevers. So meaning it kind of, it sort of makes you hot, makes you feverish to get it out. The bark is boiled in water, and then it's strained and drank warm like tea. Yeah, and so it's great, you know, when you have a cough or cold. It relieves headaches and migraines, and that's what we use it for mostly here at home. We'll keep those pieces when we have a headache. I get migraines. I get actually the aura migraines where I can't see anything. That's if I let it go too long. But if I start to see those little lines in my eyes, if I can get a little bit of tea made and I drink that, it stops me from getting the full-on migraine. So we always keep this, you know, on hand. And it can also be smoked. The red, it has like I said, it has a bitter taste, but if you put a little bit of sage with it, like you have a really bad headache right now and you kind of want to get rid of it, you can mix a little bit of sage with that bark, and then just, you know, sort of make a smudge out of it and breathe it in and take it in through the nose like that, and it just takes your headache away. It's, you know, natural pain reliever. It relieves nausea. So sometimes my daughter gets urinary tract infections kind of, you know, quite easily, and so we always have medicine on hand for that. But when she gets them, she gets nauseous, and so as soon as we know she has a UTI, we make tea and keep it in the fridge, and then that way it's there if she needs it. So it's good to have on hand. It's also eye and ear medicine. So it can help to relieve pink eye, and it can help to relieve like if you have cataracts, it can help to relieve that. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Yeah, Shelly, this is going to be recorded. This is recorded, and if you go to our Anish Corp website, it'll be posted there. I won't be able to send it to you because it'll be too big. So this is our website, nishcorp.ca, and you'll find it there under the cultural/video button, and it'll be up probably later this evening. So yeah, you just sort of mix it, make the tea, and you can mix it with things like olive oil, anything, any kind of a natural oil you can mix it with, and you can use that for like rash, or it for to clear pink eye, and it's got so many different uses. Like to go through all of them, we'd never get through it. But sorry, I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to man the chat here too as well. So we'd never get through it. I just, again, I caution, if you, before you use anything, even herbal remedies like this, to make sure that it's not going to interfere with an underlying health condition or other medications that you're taking or things like that. So just be cautious. That's all I have to say. Just be cautious. Like I said, I don't like to give out generic prescriptions. So that's what our spirit helpers are there for. They tell us what people need. So I'm going to switch the view to go up above me here. There we go. Okay, so this is my messy table. So this is my red willow piece, and I broke it in half. It was quite long, but I don't have much room here on my table. So I'm going to get out my sharp knife and try not to cut myself on camera. And so this is fresh. This was just cut yesterday. And it's been sitting outside since then, and I just brought it in this morning to sort of thaw out. So it's got to be very fresh. If you cut your red willow and then say bring it in the house and it dries out a little bit, that's okay. It's just that it's harder to scrape the bark off once it's dry, and it's harder to get that green tobacco bark off. So if it's dried out a little bit, you can always put it in the tub. Put it in the tub with some warm water for a good few hours. Let it soak up that water, and then it should be okay for you to scrape again. So very lightly, very gently, you just scrape, and it takes some time. Like, it takes some doing. This isn't quick. So just very lightly scrape at that red bark. And my hands aren't too sore today, so I'm going to do this safely and try not to turn it towards myself like I did in the video. So I'm just going to do a small piece here. I hope that's okay to see. It's, to me, on my computer screen, it looks fine, but if it's hard to see, somebody let me know, and I'll try and change the lighting a little bit. But I'm just scraping just that top layer. So this is just the red. Well, it looks a little green underneath. It's like the underside of the red. So don't worry if it looks green and you're like, oh, I'm wasting my tobacco. The underside of the red is going to be a little bit green, but that's okay. So you put that off to the side, and you can save that. Like I said, we put that away, and we'll use that for different things. Usually what we'll do is put it in a baggie, just a Ziploc bag, and we'll put it in the freezer. And then it's always there, and it's good, and you pull it out, thaw it out, and it's like brand new again. It's gonna get a sort of a bigger section here. Okay, so now this here, that's too bright, isn't it? Is that too bright? Let me just. Is that a little bit easier to see the green? It's to me, in front of my face, it's pretty green. It's like a fluorescent green almost. But this light, I don't think is helping it any. I don't know. Okay, it's green anyway. You just have to trust me. So this is what we want to use. very carefully. So once you have your whole stick cleaned, I'm not going to clean the whole stick, but once you have your whole stick cleaned, this is where you just shave off just this green, and it's not very thick. You'll sort of know when you've got it all, because underneath that green, it's sort of slippery. So once it's not kind of biting anymore, you've taken it all off. So it gets really slippery right here. So I've taken all the green off that I can, and underneath that is pretty white. So you'll know when you've reached the end of your green part. So when you're done, all that's left is just the white stick with a few knots on it. And so this, I'm going to put this on here because I think it'll be easier to see. This is the green shaving that you're going to use for the tobacco. And so that bunch of sticks that my son had in his hands, that he was posing with there in the video, that only makes I'll clean this up after, but all those sticks only makes this much tobacco, which is quite a bit. It is, but once you get this ground down, it turns into a very small amount. So this is it. This is all those sticks that you saw in the video. That's all dried up, all the shavings. There's some long shavings, kind of thicker. There's some that are really thin and curly. You want to try to keep them that consistency, the thin and curly. You can see that, because it just makes it easier to cut up, to grind up. So what we do is we make sure this is nice and dry. Unlike commercial tobacco, which is once it gets really dry, you don't like to smoke it anymore, but it kind of has to be a bit damp. So people keep them in the freezer and stuff like that. This stuff needs to be really dry, because there isn't any, what is that? There's no methanol and there's no butane and like all the stuff that the benzene, all the stuff that makes the cigarette, for example, flame, that keeps it going. There isn't any of that in this. So that's why it needs to be really dry, so that it's easy to smoke. So now what we do, now you can take, if you have time or patience, you could sit with scissors and sort of, cut this all down a little bit at a time like this, but that, we just don't have that kind of time anymore. We might have at one time. In fact, how it used to be made was we had like a stone slab, and we had our like a shoulder bone, like a small piece of a shoulder bone, and we would just like cut over it, like let me just draw. Where's my pen? Oh, I lost my pen. So we'd have like a small piece of shoulder bone like this, sort of made into a, okay, come on, pick it up. There we go. Sort of made into a cutter like this, and we would run it over top, like rolling it over top of this dried willow on top of a stone slab, a flat stone slab, and that's how we used to cut it up a long time ago. But now we have magic bullets, and so this is how we do ours. So what I do is I fill this cup, not packed, just fill it just kind of loosely, and then run it through the magic bullet. It takes, you know, you might have to run. I didn't want to run it because it's really loud, but so you run it and then take it off and sort of give it a mix, like shake it around, put it back on, run it again, until it's sort of the consistency of tobacco, really, dry tobacco, but tobacco. So I'm going to dump this out here. And so this is what we get when we run it through. Some of it's a little powdery. I probably ran it through a little too long. And so it gets pretty powdery if you do that. That's what all this is here. So I just run it through the grinder. And that's sort of, so some of these are long still. You can't really get away from that because if you grind it too long, like I said, it's just going to turn to powder. But if you have some longer sticks in here, you can always just kind of go through and cut those down. But I don't mind it like this. Because once I start, you know, packing it into my pipe, it sort of breaks up and forms anyway. So it's fine like this. So what I mix with my tobacco, sorry, I have a question. Yeah, coffee grinder. Yeah, coffee grinder or a magic bullet. Just not too long. You got to keep checking it. And am I grinding with the fresh shavings? No, after they're dried. Because if you do the fresh, like these wet shavings here, it's just going to kind of all bunch up sort of into a glue. So you don't want to be too wet. This was probably a little too dry even when I ground it. So it's kind of an in-between thing. You don't want it to be wet, but you don't want it to be bone dry either, because you're going to get powder. So it's sort of, you got to kind of time it and check it and see. So maybe after 2 days of drying, see how dry it is. And if it seems like it'll be good to run through your grinder, then give it a try. And then you might end up with a better consistency. But what I do is, this is okay like this, perfectly fine like this, but I like to add a little bit of mint to it. And this is just for taste for me. So I have some mint here, dried mint leaves. And so these are really dry. So all you have to kind of do is just sort of squish them in and they break up nicely into small pieces. So I'll mix that in with this like that. And this actually was fresh this morning from the grocery store. You can get mint, fresh mint from the grocery store, and it depends on what store you go to. Sometimes it's in the tea aisle, and sometimes it's in where all like the herbs and spices are. So, and then again, sometimes it's sort of in like a refrigerated section. So it depends. You kind of have to look for it. But if you ask, they know where it's at. It could be in with the vegetables too, like in the refrigerated section there. So just ask. Grocery stores, you know, usually have it on hand. And so that was fresh this morning, and I just put it in the oven for a little while and just to dry it out. So now I have that mixed in here, and that's okay like that too. This is perfectly fine like this. But I also like to mix in with mine some bear root, because I love the smell of burning bear root. And so I'll mix a little bit, just a little bit. You don't need too much. So I put a little bit of bear root in. And like I said, this is all to taste. So it depends on you. All of these ingredients, it depends on how much you like mint, right? Or how much you like the smell of bear root, or You could put dried berries in here if you like the taste of berries. You can dry up any kind of berries really, and put them in there. You have to really grind them up good, and so they're really small pieces, or else they don't, if you're smoking this in your pipe, they kind of don't burn very well. So you want to make sure that that your pieces of berry are pretty small. I don't put berries in mine. Just this is it. This is all I put in here is just mint and some bare root. And this is what I use for smoking in my pipe rather than commercial tobacco. Like I said, I'll accept the commercial tobacco, but what I use that for is for offerings, to make like tobacco ties. So if I'm making tobacco ties, for whatever reason, to make a water offering or a fire offering or something like that, I'll put that commercial tobacco in here, because I'm not going to be smoking it. So it goes in here. I do use it. It does get used for sure. But you know what? It's nice. It's really nice to get, somebody's coming to you and asking, for prayers or for some, like a ceremony, and you're needing to smoke your pipe. It's nice when you're brought some of this traditional tobacco rather than the commercial tobacco, because it just, like I said, I don't use it. So I just find it nice. I find it like they've put a lot of time and effort into this, and a lot of thought, and your heart goes into it, and it's just, to me it's more meaningful, right? Not that I don't accept the regular tobacco, but it's nice to get this. So what you do with this, once it's done like this, I usually just put it in a Ziploc bag. So it just goes directly in the Ziploc bag and like this, and into the freezer. So it's ready when we need, and putting it in the freezer kind of gives it a little bit of moisture too when you pull it out. So it's good to have on hand like that. And I just got a question. How do you prepare the bare root? Yeah, that's a whole nother teaching. That's a whole nother day of, because it's finding it, making sure that it's the proper plant, digging down to the root, that has to be cut before it's dried out. Like, so what, sort of an easier way, if you're lucky enough to live in a city where there's Chinese herbal stores, or like a lot of us indigenous people, we have stores now. Like here in Winnipeg, we've got Tika's, and there's a couple other stores, and sometimes they sell bare root there. But what you could do is, if you live where there's a Chinese herbal remedy store, you could go in there and ask them for osha root. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Osha. They call it osha. It is just their word for it. They use it for a lot of the same things we use it for. And actually, you could even go on Amazon. If you really needed to, you could go on Amazon and order it right off of Amazon. I think, my husband did that one time. He just wanted to see what he was going to get. And so he went on Amazon, and I don't remember how much he got. It was quite a bit. It was a big, like, it would have fit into the larger Ziploc bags. That's how much he got of osha root. And it didn't cost very much. It was actually pretty cheap, and it was really it was really good quality. We were quite surprised. And so I mean, it's one thing to go out and experience, have that experience of harvesting it yourself and you know, preparing it yourself. But you know, if you can't do that, you can always order it on Amazon. Can kind of get almost anything on Amazon these days. But yeah, that's a whole nother Zoom about preparing bare root. So we won't get into that, but it comes, bare root comes in like if you were to order it on Amazon, for example, it comes in sort of short stalks, short little they're quite thick, maybe not this thick, but no, not quite this thick, but they come in short little stalks like this, and then you just put those in the magic bullet or in your coffee grinder and grind it down. We grind it right down to powder form. So this is how we grind our bare root down. It's powdered basically. And I actually think this stuff came from Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. We had quite a bit, because when you use bare root, you don't use a whole lot of it. If you're going to add it to your smudge, for example, you only need just a little pinch of it. What I like to do, especially in the winter time, is I'll put a pot on the back burner with some water, and I'll put some cedar in there. And then once it's boiling, I'll put a little bit of bare root, and it just makes the whole house just smell wonderful. It kind of smells like maple syrup when you walk into the house. It's like somebody's cooking pancakes or something, because it has that like a sweet aroma to it. But so then once you get this packaged, you prepare it and you put it in a Ziploc bag, seal it up. What you could then do is make yourself some just some cloth bags. And if you're offering this as tobacco for questions or prayers, or you need somebody to smoke their pipe for you, or whatever it is, then you have this in the Ziploc, and you put it inside the nice cotton bag that you've made. This one's kind of big, but you make a smaller cotton bag and put this in there and draw the string, and just to hand that over is it's like when that happens, when somebody hands something like this to me, I think, wow, they put so much time and effort into this. That was so nice of them to do, and I really appreciate it. So that's what you can do with your chanshaja, your kinnikinnick. This I had a question a little bit earlier, but when you harvest, and so the red willow is wintertime. You want to harvest after it's been freezing. You can harvest at any time of the year, but it's the taste. So if you have if you're going to be smoking this in your pipe, it tastes bitter. Or not, I don't even know if it's bitter. It's more like, I don't know, stale or swampy or something. It has a weird taste anyway, in the summertime when it's hot. So that's why we go when it's cold. Snow's already fallen, and that's when we harvest our red willow. It just for some reason tastes a lot better. And so this isn't going to make very much. So when I said I put it in my little cup here that goes into my magic bullet, that's about it. Like just a sort of a handful goes in there like that. Put the thing on, run it through, and that only gives you basically, where did my bag go? Oh, I put it away. that gives you what you see here. So not a whole lot. So you're going to need a lot. You're going to need a lot of red willow to make, you know, a good supply of tobacco. So yeah, and like I said, you can put whatever you want into it. If you like certain flavors of, you know, maybe some kind of spice or something, hey, go ahead and put that in there. You're the one smoking it, so it's to taste. Yeah, so yeah, red willow is it's the where did I put my bark? Oh, here it is. So the red bark that you shave off of this, if you can grind that down to a powder, so let it dry out, grind it down to a powder, and you can mix that with bear grease, and it's just I don't even know what the measurements would be. It's just I don't know. I do everything just sort of by eye. And I'm not good with measurement, like milliliters and stuff like that. So let me see. Do I have something around here? I don't even have a cup or anything around here. It's just you're not using a whole lot. So if you have it ground down into powder form, maybe in a quarter cup of bear root, which is a lot of bear root actually, or bear grease, sorry. A quarter cup of bear grease, you're only going to be using maybe a tablespoon or a teaspoon of ground red willow, and that's enough to make like a salve that you could put on rashes. How long can tobacco be stored? If it's in the freezer, it can be stored for quite a long time. So how we do it here is we have it on our in our freezer. We have like that basket that sits in there, and there's like a square dish, like a plastic thing that I forget. I don't even know where I bought it from, but it just fits nicely in there, and that's where we kind of have them all sort of sitting like this, and we actually date them. I write the date that these were made, and that before we put them in. And we do that with all our medicines that we put in the freezer, just so we know which ones we should use first. But they can be stored for quite a long time, as long as it's in the freezer. I say as long as it's in the freezer because if it's not in the freezer, I mean, you've been handling it, right? And you might have bacteria on your hands. And you're kind of putting that in there with it. Not that that's a bad thing. It's okay. It's just that bacteria can start to grow mold and stuff like that. So if it gets damp, for example, you're going to end up with little bits of mold in your tobacco, and you don't really want to be smoking that or burning that. So as long as it's kept in the freezer, it should keep for quite a long time. I'm just going to check the chat quickly, make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, the bear root, bear root's actually, it's not that it's hard to find. It's just that you kind of have to go quite far into the bush to find bear root that's usable. You see it a lot in northern Ontario when you're driving down like the highway, the Trans-Canada. You can see it off to the side of the road, but I mean, when you're right off the side of the highway like that, that the plows go by and they plow everything that was on the road off into the ditch, which is getting soaked up by the plants that are right in like the ditch area. And there could be all kinds of chemicals in that. So you kind of go quite far into the bush. And then there's another plant that looks, I don't remember the name of it, but it looks almost exactly the same as the bare root plant. But this plant is very toxic. So you have to be very careful that you're actually touching, because even just touching that plant will give you like 3rd-degree burns on your hands, and it's a horrible plant. It's not native to Canada. It's something that was sort of brought over from another country, and then it just started to grow here as like a wildflower, as a wild growing plant. And it's I wish I remembered the name of it, but you have to be really careful because they look the same. The flowering part, they look quite similar. Just don't touch that other one because you'll be hurting. So yeah, I guess like I said, this wasn't a very long workshop. If anybody's got any more questions, once you take off the red color and remove the green for tobacco, what happens to the white smooth stick? Oh, okay, yeah. So this stick can also be used for different ailments. So I think like some stomach issues, pain medication. This is Tylenol. This is basic giant hogweeds. Thank you. Yeah. This is like Tylenol. So if you had access to like a bandsaw or something, what you could do is sort of shave it in, or cut it into like little buttons, little round just buttons, and then you can keep those in a baggie in the freezer, and it's the same thing. It's like pain reliever. Or the smaller, so this is the end of the stick where it's really small. What you could do with these is what we used to do with this parts are we would make baskets, or when we lived in teepees, we used to have we sat on the floor, but we would build like sort of like chair backs, and that's what we used these smaller sticks for. Once we shaved off all the red and we took off our green for our tobacco, we would weave them together and then make chair backs or baskets for carrying berries, or harvesting medicines and stuff like that. So it was always used anyway. Every part of it was used. But for sure, you can cut this up, and now when it comes to what's the prescription, how much do I put in to relieve my pain? Well, that's where I always use caution. I don't, like I said, I don't like to give out generic prescriptions. I'm not going to tell somebody, oh, just put it in a cup of water, put this much, of a piece in a cup of water and drink it and you'll be fine. Because I don't know if you have underlying health conditions or are taking other medications that this might interact with or anything like that. I would first maybe go and talk to an elder, talk to somebody, a medicine person who works with medicines, and sit down with them and tell them, give them a bit of background. What other ailments do you have? What kind of medications are you on? And they'll be able to tell you, well, you'll be safe using, like if you cut it into buttons, for example, you could put two or three buttons in 2 cups of water, boil that for 15 minutes, and then wait till it cools and drink it as a pain reliever, and take that twice a week. That might be an example of what somebody might tell you once they know a little bit more about you. Because if you don't know anything about the person, and you give them that same prescription that I just said, they might end up in the hospital, right? Because it's interacting with some other medication they're taking, or they have, you know, stomach ulcers or something that this is going to irritate it rather than help it. So you have to be really careful. So definitely go and talk to somebody if this is something that, you know, you have pain, say for example, arthritis pain, and rather than taking, you know, Tylenol and ibuprofen all the time, you'd rather use the red willow sticks as pain relievers. Awesome, but talk to somebody first, and let them, give them, you know, don't hold anything back. Give them all the medications you're taking, everything. You know, some people are afraid to tell if they smoke weed, or if they drink every once in a while, or sometimes they take T3s just for the high, you know. And if, you know, I'm not judging or anything like that, but what I'm saying is you have, make sure you tell them everything. The person that you're going to talk to, because that those things might be very important for them to know when telling you how much to use or when to use it. So don't hold back anything like that. Don't be afraid to talk about those things too. Do you chew on the white bark pieces for pain relief? Well, you can. If you have, say, a toothache, and you know, you're you're out in the bush, and you all of a sudden you have a toothache and you've got nothing, you know, no other way to relieve this toothache, you could, if you had a knife, pull off a piece of this white bark, and either get like a stone or something and sort of mash it down and make it, because it's pretty stiff. So you want to make it so that it's you're able to put it sort of on the tooth, or close to the tooth that's hurting. And yeah, it'll help with that. But when you're talking like arthritis pain, that sort of thing, you're going to want to make a tea for sure. Because you're not going to get, it's bitter. I mean, I wish I could give you all a piece to taste, like to put in your mouth and chew on, because it's bitter. And the amount you would need to chew on in order to get relief for like arthritis pain, I just use that as an example, is quite a bit. So it's easier to make a tea out of it, and you're going to get more of the medicinal parts out of it if you make a tea. So yeah, just like I said, be careful when you're taking anything in as medication. I can't stress that enough, because you know, I've seen it. I've seen where people give out sort of generic prescriptions, like, oh yeah, just make this, you'll be fine. But then they don't realize that that person that they gave that to has a, you know, some kind of a condition that this, whatever the medicine was that they gave them, is just going to make it worse. For example, you know, I was listening to a conversation about somebody saying they had some kind of an ailment, and what the person said to do was to make tea out of wheat. And I all of a sudden I got chills. And I thought, oh my God, you don't want to do that, because that person had cancer. Now, the person who gave that prescription out didn't know that. And if they would have taken, like, Wheat's, it's a natural blood thinner. So if, you know, if they would have taken that Wheat, it could have, basically could have helped that cancer to grow, thinning out the blood the way it did, because it was brain cancer. They had a brain tumor, and so that blood would have thinned, and it would have just made things a lot worse for them. So you have to be careful. Not that that person couldn't have a Wheat tea, but like, it's how much do I take before it becomes, something that's not going to help me. And then, I had somebody tell me one time, well, it's medicine, it's not going to hurt us, we just tell it what to do. And I thought, oh, I don't tell medicine what to do. I ask, my spirit helpers, what kind of medicine does this person need and how do they take it? I don't say, okay, Red Willow, I'm going to give you to this person and you're going to cure whatever ailment they have. And it doesn't really work that way. We don't tell these things what to do. We learn how to use them properly. So like I said, just be cautious if you're going to be ingesting this as a pain reliever. Can you make a tincture out of the green bark shavings? Yes, you can. What the method is, I'm not sure. Like I said, and you know what? There's a lot of herbologists that you can ask. They're the ones who love to make the tinctures, and they'll be able to tell you exactly, how many milliliters of this do you need to put in, how many milliliters of that, how long do you cook it for? Like, they'll be able to tell you all of that. I couldn't tell you about the tincture. I don't have that knowledge, so that's something you might want to ask a herbologist. And so this can be found. I'm just gonna type it quick. So that is our website, and this can be found later on this evening. Like, I have to upload it and then let it do its thing and put it on Facebook, and then it goes from Facebook to our website. So it takes a little bit of doing, but it should be up, let's say 9 p.m. It should be up and running. So that's where you'll be able to find it, is there. So I'm just going to remove this view. There we go. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? That's about it. It's not hard. The hardest part is harvesting it. Going out in the wintertime and in the deep snow and stuff like that, but it's worth it. It's healthier. It smells wonderful. You can mix it with, whatever you like, whatever smells, whatever, tastes that you like when it comes to, spices and stuff like that. It's up to you. You're the one, using this, and like I said, it's also really wonderful to get. when somebody passes that tobacco and it's not commercial tobacco, it's like, oh wow, thank you. I can see you put, time and effort into this, and it's really much appreciated. So if that's it, what other workshops? Keep an eye out on our Facebook page, our Anish Corp Facebook page, where we got quite a few things coming up, and we always have knowledge keepers and elders, willing to share what knowledge they carry. So we should have a lot more stuff coming up. And now that it's coming up summertime, we'll be able to get out on the land and maybe take a camera and sort of do some virtual medicine picking. So we might do that too later on in the summertime. Thank you so much, Amanda, for helping me out. Amanda just put our Facebook info in the chat. So yeah, so if there's no questions, I guess that's it. And I'm just reading all the thank yous. No, thank you guys. Thank you for coming and being with me while I share this. And I share what I can. I got a little bit of knowledge and I do share it whenever I can. So thank you for coming. Okay, I guess that's it. All right, thank you, Amanda. We'll see you again.